Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. John Nori, and I'll be your moderator for today. If you have any technical difficulties during the webinar, you're going to want to call the number in red at the top of your screen. It's 855-352-9002. And there's an ID number toward the bottom of the screen that you'll need to have when you make that call, 987-785-011. We're on Twitter at NASSP, and we'd like you to use the hashtag NASSP webinar. And you can follow us on Facebook as well at that address. If you're interested in certification for having attended today's webinar, you can go to the NASSP website after the fact and request that at nassp.org/webinar. That's also where you'll find the recording of the webinar as we publish it to the website after we've completed. We're going to be somewhat informal today in that Joan and I are going to interact a bit, and we don't look at any of this as a polished production. We want to just make sure that you are comfortable asking questions. We have a question box where you can jot down your questions to us or for Joan as she presents. And we also ask you when we are asking for a reaction to a question that you would enter those in the chat box, which you should see on your screen. Joan Octor's today's presenter. You see her on your screen now. She is the Director of Professional Learning at NASSP. And prior to that, she's held some other key positions in other organizations you'll recognize. One is with the College Board. Before that, she ran the GED program, and she was the driving force, one of the driving forces at the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. So Joan, welcome. I'm glad you're with us. Can you hear me today, Joan?
Yes, I can. Thank you, John.
And hand the keyboard over to you now, so you'll be able to advance your slides and start your presentation.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. We really appreciate each of you and the work that you do, and we thank you for the opportunity to show you the great work that our practicing principals have helped us develop. Our work is always of the people, by the people, and for the principals. So we want to start the way we start all of our meetings, and that's sort of with the empathetic state, where we're really listening. And we'd like for you to go to your chat panel and identify two of the greatest challenges. Okay, hold on a minute, John. I'm not getting the control.
Let me try again, make sure I've given it to you.
We always love to be in control.
Now try.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay, so okay, I'm trying again just a minute. Okay, now we're working. Thank you. So we'd like you to take about 20 seconds, go to your chat panel, and enter two of the greatest challenges you face as a school leader. And watch on the side to see what your colleagues are entering as well. John, take a peek and see if you're identifying any similarities in what people are answering. So if you just go to the right panel where it says chat, into your question box, and just add two challenges that you're facing today. And John, you can watch those as we move forward. And
I will.
hold these. Okay, and hold these thoughts, hold what you're thinking, and see how these align with the work that we're doing and that we're hearing as challenges from school leaders. Many of you may be familiar with the foundational program of NASSP, and it's been our Breaking Ranks program since the 1990s. We've refreshed it 2 or 3 times, but if you'll notice, it's a comprehensive framework for school improvement, and it was more during the accountability age. It's still great work, and we're still leveraging most of it, but we're moving on now to building ranks, and our focus is on effective school leaders. So the focus on the new suite of products is all about you. And why now? Why are we looking now to redevelop this product? And as you all are, I'm sure, aware, there are new standards for educational leaders, the professional standards for educational leadership, which paints a beautiful portrait of everything you have to do. It's 10 standards and 84 elements, a lot of work. As well as the educational landscape evolving, there's makerspace, the students are online, you're global, there's safety issues. There are many, many responsibilities that are new that you're asked to deal with, and how do you do it? How are you prepared? And we need to develop the principal pipeline because most school leaders stay fewer than 5 years. How do we both prepare principals, support principals so they want to stay in the role, and bring new leaders on board?
Joan, I have
When we
Joan, I have two comments in the question box that in response to your request for challenges. Would you like to hear them now, or should I hold them?
No, go ahead and share them, John.
Now I have three. The first one was dealing with school threats.
Okay, school safety.
The second one is dealing with dealing with social media and problems that are brought into the school because of it.
Okay.
And the third is discipline and educator buy-in to new initiatives.
So those are great challenges, and I want you to watch this space because I think you're going to find kindred spirits among your colleagues across the nation who've helped develop this work, as well in the standard work, because things that you're facing today, the social media, bullying online, are things that did not happen before. The threats in the school that we're living with today are overwhelming. And how do you as a leader manage all of these things? Where's your support system? And as we look at the professional standards for educational leadership, you'll see how they've evolved from accountability to support. That equity is now there because it's all about each student. And we've moved from just academic rigor, as you see in the bottom, to also support and care. So it's that wellness, that social media, that threat. How do we take care of both? And in addition to that, rather than just the students in the school, the focus is now on the adults as well. So as that school leader, you're the HR director for every adult that has a role in your school. How do you support them, and who supports you as you do this work? Okay, John?
It's not.
Yeah, I'm seeing your era. You're moving, right? Can you
Right.
advance?
I advanced it for you, and I'll give it back to you. We have another thought that just came in that you might be interested in. One of the issues we seem to face is trying to meet the needs of a moving target. Our teachers are trying to incorporate SBG, mastery learning, testing expectations, changing curriculum, etc.
Okay, thank you. And you see that we have diverse comments, but they all focus on what you as a leader need to do to ensure that each child and each adult in your school are successful. Mm-hmm. Why is NASSP the person to do this? Well, NASSP's new strategic intent is, again, all about school leaders, but it's developing school leaders to shape the future of American education. And you've alluded to a lot of the issues with the future. The world is now global. It's between the thumbs of your children. And also, the only way we're going to get great schools is by supporting great school leaders. Yes, teachers have the most influence on the students in the classroom, but if you don't build the environment in which everyone succeeds, that's not going to happen either. And to make sure that the support is there, we can't focus only on the practitioners. We also have to be looking at from preparation to mastery. How are those higher education programs getting you prepared to move forward when you start your new roles as a school leader? So what we're getting, the kinds of questions we're getting, okay, you've got all these new standards out there. What do they mean for me? What's that going to look like in my practice, and what kind of resources are out there? I'm seeing the standards, but I'm not seeing the resources that support me. So NASSP has worked and convened panels of practicing principals to interpret these standards into what it should look like for you in your world each day. And John was actually on the first committee, having been a member of NASSP, having worked with the original breaking ranks and breaking ranks in the middle. John, tell a little bit about your experience with that team.
Well, the team was pretty diverse. We had folks that were in schools that were rural, urban. We had people who had lots of experience beyond their own buildings, and that some who had been teacher and principal in the same building. And we had people who played different roles throughout the school system. One is now a superintendent. Um, One is a director of professional learning in his district. So people came in with lots of skill sets and lots of different experiences on building teams and working on the motivation of staff to problem solve and get the school going in the direction it wanted to go in. And if I said, is there anything you want me to comment on that I've missed, Joan?
No, that's good. And we had higher ed there as well, just so we had the whole continuum.
Yeah, I forgot about them.
But
Thank you.
but the interesting thing is, we said, what is it that you need to do your job? What is it with breaking ranks? We had 10 skills and we had a framework and we had recommendations. How can we create a resource that will support you, that is your go-to place? And so we built a book that's a framework. We're going to build an online community around it so you can connect with others and have coaching. But more important than that the book is not a theory book. It takes theory to practice, and it does that through illustrative examples of principals from across the country. Elementary principals, middle school principals, secondary principals, rural, urban, suburban, large schools, small schools, telling their stories of what this looks like in their practice. And beyond that, what kind of actions can you take and what resources are there to make that happen? And independently, we have diagnostic tools. So they're not reliant. It's not you start here, then you go here, you go here. You can start in any place, but if you want some way to diagnose where you should focus, there'll be surveys, there'll be an assessment center, and I'll talk about those a little more later. But we started with, and you may be familiar with Simon Sinek and the why. Why do we do the things we do? Most people talk about what we do and how we do it, but why are we doing it? Why are you there? Why are you giving your heart and soul each day as you go in to take care of all the lives that are in your care? And the committees came up with, we're there because we want to prepare the whole child, not just the brain, the academic, but the whole child for success, and not just in college and careers, but in life and in the global community. And to do that, you're the hero. And what is it that you do? You as a school leader, and look at these verbs, guys, and think about your life and think about what you do each day strategically, collaboratively, because there's no way one individual person can do everything, and you're all so humble and you all talk about your teams and everyone that helped you. But if you're not the orchestra director, if you don't make sure you have the right people in the right chairs, and if you don't know what the overall piece is supposed to sound like and you don't direct it, it's not going to happen. So you collaboratively and purposefully do this. And to make it happen, you have to equip, which means you have to have the right sources in the right place. You have to encourage, and more than encouraging, you're empowering. You're letting some people take over and do what they need to do, but then you're driving. This is important. Let's all get together and let's all go, so that all individuals, not just the students, but the adults in your school as well, and yourself, reach your highest potential. And how do you do this? So we started like I asked you to start. list 2 challenges. What are 2 things that are important to you? And I think, John, we started with about 40.
Yeah, I think we had quite a few when we
So everybody said, yeah, this is what I have to do as a school leader. And there are about 40 things, and we bucketed them and we bucketed them and we bucketed them. And we said, when you walk in your school each day, what do you have to make sure happens for success? And we ended up resoundingly with 2 domains. You have to build your culture and lead learning. Because when you build your culture, each individual is safe in a caring and a high performing community, and that empowers them to apply their skills, knowledges, and dispositions to contribute productively. So when you look at this one slide, this is a snapshot of your job description. And then we took it further than that. Okay, we went from ground up to what a school leader should do. And then we said, okay, let's take into account all the standards that are out there, not just the professional standards for educational leaders. Let's look at the ISTE standards for technology. Let's look at the old breaking ranks recommendations that are still strong, the elementary school standards, the Wallace 5 standards, and then there's a school leader paradigm that five states have come together to create that are wonderful behaviors of school leaders. And we translated them into what the school leader should know and be able to do. On the right, the little schoolhouse is the logic model. Your leadership is the foundation for everything that happens. So you, as a school leader, are responsible for holding up that foundation. And you do it through 2 strands. You do it through building culture and leading learning. And think about those comments you made earlier. Do you see them in the building culture, in the student-centeredness, the equity? Think about wellness and how important that is today. Global-mindedness, communication, ethics, relationships, both within and outside your school. And then leading learning no longer is you pass go, people give you money for all the resources you need, and it's a very tight body of information that when you measure students as they leave, you can show that they know what they should know when they leave school. Now you have to show that they know the process for learning so they can continue to be successful. And in order to do that, you have to develop the human capital of everyone in your building. So you're an HR manager. And that collaborative leadership has never been more important. The more and more you're asked to do with less and less, the more and more you have to collaborate with the staff within your building, with your parents, with your broader community to ensure that you have the resources that each child needs. The innovation or entrepreneurship, you never have everything you need, so how do you get it? Where do you go? How do you get that buy-in? And then most important, how do you stop back and reflect? These are the things we've done. Did they work well? What do we need to do? So this, in order to make those things happen, then the teachers can be successful, both professionally and personally, because it's their knowledge and wellness. It's your students, not just their careers in colleges, but also how do they perform as a citizen? How do they perform in life? So when you look at this, if anyone asks you what you do on a daily basis, show them this and say, this is my job. This is my life. This is what I'm responsible for. And this is why I need you. John, any thoughts on how you guys came up with these dimensions?
Well, I keep going back to the conversation that we had probably the second time we met, where one member of the team kept saying, if culture, the ground starting place for all of this, then we're making a mistake. And I'm looking at the questions that folks entered in response to your request at the beginning of the webinar, and everything that they asked about, everything that they listed in these questions has to do with building culture, which the leader is responsible for. And of course, they all the culture pieces feed right into the leading learning section. So I think we hit the nail on the head when it comes to what these folks who are on the webinar have asked about.
And it's wonderful because the culture, I mean, with everything we're seeing today with the students' health and wellness, if you make sure that the person sees themselves, they have self-efficacy, then they can learn.
Mm-hmm.
All right, John, I'm frozen again.
Click again. You should be okay. Or I'll move it for you.
Move it for me, please.
Here you go.
So if you click again, so when
Yeah.
we, just as validation of this, at the end of our conference last summer, and there were over 4,000 people at the National Principals Conference, we asked them to, John, are you hearing an echo or is it just me?
I'm not hearing the echo at all. So
Okay.
you should be okay. Okay.
All right. I just didn't want other people to be annoyed. So when you see these, we ask people to rank order them, and they showed up in the order that the attendees ranked these different topics for the conference for 2018. And you can see leading learning and building culture took the top. And then we brought together another committee. So everything we do is convening you, convening the school leader, saying, what is it that's important to you? And we started from ground zero again. What do you want at the conference? What do you want to hear? What do you think your colleagues would want from a conference so that they walk away enriched and can take something back to your school? And you see they came up with the same: leading learning, building culture, and the third, and we had a lot of digital principals. Now, NASSP has a digital principal program where we recognize school leaders who infuse technology in their schools for change, where it's a means to an end, not the end. You can see designing the future. And so those are the three strands for the conference, but it was yet another validation that this is the right direction to go. So we proceeded with putting together this framework, those 15 dimensions that you saw in the schoolhouse. And before we moved to production to say, this is good enough, we sent it out to other additional people for review. And you can see that Laurie Barron is now a superintendent of schools out west, who was a breakthrough school leader, who loved the illustrative real-life examples from principals across the country. Pam Salazar is a published author and an instructor at higher ed who said that what you read there is applicable both for preparation and induction of principals. Carol Conklin Spillane was a breakthrough school principal, is now a superintendent of schools in New York, and says she wants to use this for her administrators in New York. So what is this? Why is it important? I'm going to take you through one example just so you can see, if you have this book, what are you going to have? How is this going to assist you? And just like we talked about the why statement, the Simon Sinek's why are we doing this? For each of these dimensions, the leader stopped and said, why? Why should we have wellness in our schools? If we can't answer that question, then it's not worth bringing up to this level. And when they looked at wellness, focusing on wellness because healthy students and adults learn and interact productively. Things we're seeing happening in schools today may not occur if we could have the resources to focus on wellness. And what is it? What is wellness in our school culture? It's the well-being and safety of everyone, and it's intentionally fostered and nurtured. So throughout each chapter, you'll see quotes from the field. So in each of these dimensions, there are multiple illustrative examples, multiple resources from different people in different situations and what they do. Kara Bobroff is a principal at a Native American charter school in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where they really are nurturing their own culture. And her quote is, to prepare students for academic and life success, they must have an integrated approach that addresses not only academics, but also their mental and physical wellness. So that's what they're thinking. Well, what are practical strategies to make that happen? So there's strategies like leading the members of the school community to focus on wellness in all its aspects and increasing wellness programming strategies. So what does that mean? So if you get a little bit of elaboration around increasing wellness programming and strategies, how can you and your school sit down with yourself for self-reflection, your leadership team, your community, to say, how do we determine the wellness needs of these students in this school at this time, and identify school-wide programs or strategies that address those needs? But more importantly, how is this more than just an add-on or a Band-Aid? How are these initiatives integrated into the day-to-day work of the school? How is the time focused on wellness just as critical as the time where you stop and focus on learning? How do you make that happen? So as one example, a principal in a large diverse school population in Gaithersburg, Maryland, has developed a wellness center, and the wellness center provides 4 types of services. The physical and health services that you can probably readily name, but just important, the preventative services like after-school youth groups in many, many different ways to help build these students' thoughts and self-esteem. And then not just for the students, but for the families as well. How do you address the support for the families? So throughout each of these dimensions, you'll see multiple illustrative examples of how different schools with different needs have put systems in place. Kara Broboff had a wellness circle that addressed mind, body, spirit for her students in her school, and also had teaching their native language so they can keep their culture. So the ways that people address this are very diverse, but it's stopping and identifying the needs of that community and then working together to make sure that those needs fit. Additionally, there'll be actions and tools that support how they made that happen. NASSP has a whole new module on school safety that has different tools that we've collected to support school leaders. You can also go to the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. So all of these tools and resources are listed with the links, and we will have them in such a way that you can click on the link and get to all of these resources. In addition, what I think is really great, having been at National Board, for those of you who know the National Board program, one of the major attributes of that program is reflection. And what we've done for each of these dimensions is create deep thinking reflection questions that you can either use for your own practice, or you can sit down with your school team and say, let's think about this. Where are we now? What would we like to do as a school community to address this? And you can identify which strategy you would like to do. You would have the resources there. And there are also additional resources at the end of each chapter, like Aspen's Institute. We have videos that Washington State created. So there's multiplicity of print, video, different types of resources you can use. And John, you helped a lot in capturing and gleaning resources to support this. How would you portray this?
Well, I think that a hallmark of a good modern day resource book or collection is that it can take you in so many different directions and very deep in each subject. So the simple thing to say is that the depth here, the depth that's provided by these resources, will help you if you identify I don't one area you want to focus on. It'll take you into that area very deeply, and some of the resources will take you to things that are free and or inexpensive, and others there'll be resources that some other organization might be publishing and asking folks to pay for. But it's a lot of depth to it and a lot of substance to it. Is the best way to say it.
So as a school community, you could sit and look at all of the different dimensions. Where are you strong? Where do you need growth? What could be your focus for the year? Do you want to focus on global mindedness? Do you want to focus on collaborative leadership or reflection? And you as a team could identify a school need, or as an individual, you could define areas for which you would like to focus. And if you happen to be working in a district where, trying to go backwards, sorry guys. I know this is a horrible slide. You're never supposed to show a slide that has so much information on it you can't read it. But what this shows you is we developed principles of practice. We took the 10 standards and the 84 elements and reduced them to 32 things. And then when you come over here, you'll see all of the dimensions, those for building culture and those for leading learning. And if you're interested, if you're in the wellness like we just did, you can see that the principle of practice 2, school leaders collaboratively develop, embrace, and ensure a learning community that supports a safe, caring, and trusting environment is addressed here. It's addressed in other elements as well, but then if your district or your state is aligned with the PSEL standards, and for your own evaluation or your own work, you have to show the work you've done in that area. Everything in orange is directly aligned. So here we are in wellness, and all of these over here in the PSELs are directly aligned. Or if you go to our principle of practice 7, school leaders value and celebrate diversity that supports the social, emotional, and intellectual well-being. You can see over here all of the PSEL standard elements that are addressed in that particular dimension in the book. So there's a lot of richness. There are a lot of ways for you to use this, both individually and as a group. And I'm going to pause here for a moment because our belief is that your success is when building culture and leading learning in that Venn diagram merge. They are not separate. The reason we're defining each of these independently is so that you can focus on them and then you can blend them together. And I'm going to pause here for a moment to see if anyone has questions or any discussions you'd like to have around what you've seen thus far. Or John, any comments?
I haven't seen any new comments come in, but I'll remind people you can type them into the question box. And Joan, I might be taking back the control for a moment by using my mouse, but don't see any new ones come. But let's take a moment, see if people want to put them in. You could also put them in the chat box if you have something you want us to react to.
And John, anything you would like to talk about based on what we've talked about thus far?
Well, while we're waiting for anybody else who wants, I'd like you to go back. I'm going to go back to a previous slide and ask you, would you say more about the PSEL being used as an evaluative tool for principals and how this kind of slide that I have up now, how that would help principals gather the data they need in their own evaluations?
Well, I have 2 roles actually. One, I work at NASSP. A second hat I wear is as the SPA coordinator for the National Policy Board for Educational Administration, and that's the board that does the certification of higher ed programs to say that they are meeting the standards of preparing new leaders. For them to be certified, they have to demonstrate how their programs are aligned with the PSEL standards through the NELP standards. And right now, 19 states and 5 others have either adapted or adopted the PSEL standards for their state principal program work. So if you're in certain states, everything you're doing as a school leader, Delaware, Idaho, Maryland, Missouri, New Jersey, New York, all of their work is aligned to the PSEL standards.
Mhm.
So if you happen to be working in the wellness, you can say, I did these activities with my school, or I did this for growth, and it aligned with these PSEL standards.
Right, and I was a principal in Maryland, so if I were working on this particular standard, or working in this particular area rather, I would be able to gather information about my performance. Take 1C, for example: articulate, advocate, and cultivate core values that define the school's culture, et cetera, et cetera. I could pull resources as a result of work in that area. But more importantly, I could also go to the resources section of this book to help me dig deeper into that particular area in order to refine my performance there. So I
Right,
can
and then you can show the actions or activities that you did. So normally you have to present, I did this to
Mhm,
do that. So
mhm.
you could say, I did this strategy with my team. We used this resources, and here was our outcome, and it aligns directly with this.
Yep, thank you. That's very helpful, and I hope that's as illuminating for people who are on the webinar as it is for me, because I think that when you think about your own evaluation, sometimes it's something you'll get to later because you're so busy working on trying to do what's best for kids. This gives you the upfront advantage of thinking about how work you're doing for kids and teachers aligns with your own performance being measured, if I'm
And
saying
what
that
I failed
correctly.
to mention, John, is the gray lines on here. So everything that's in orange is aligned.
Hmm.
The gray are implied. So
Okay.
the work is there, it's implied, it's just not a blatant alignment.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
So I'm going to go on and tell you what's coming in April. So this framework that we're then going to move to an online platform, because what we want to do, we started with as many illustrative examples and resources as we collect, because there had to be a starting place. But we're counting on you as practicing principals to share what you're doing. So you could say, oh, that was great. Hey, by the way, we did this. We used this tool. And here's an example of how it worked for us, so that we can vet these and add them in, and it becomes a growing body of work. It's not something that's printed and forgotten. It will be an online community. And so that's the direction we're taking with that. But what are your strengths? So everyone loves discovering your strengths, right? We can all talk about, I'm strong in this area and I develop this area and I hire faculty that can do these things, or assistant principals to do these things to complement me. Well, against these 15 dimensions that we've just defined, we're creating tools that are not evaluation tools as much as they are diagnostic tools to help you identify areas of strengths and areas of growth. So coming in the next, we'll be actually piloting this in March. There is a perception survey that you would take yourself. You would have your certified and non-certified staff take to identify against those same dimensions, what are the perceptions of strengths and areas of growth in your own school community. And it's completely anonymous, it's all online, and you get a very in-depth report that gives you something to analyze. We all love data. We're all supposed to be using data to make decisions, data-driven decisions. So this gives you another data point. It is a perception, but it is a data point that you can use to open conversations, to help direct where you want to focus your attention for the next semester on professional learning or school programs. So This is another tool that will be available. In April, we'll have another webinar to give you more information about it. In addition to that, those were perceptions. One is, well, what do I really know and be able to do? So a committee helped us develop an assessment tool that's an online tool, and it's really cool. We're developing it right now, where you're actually in the type of environment you're in every day. So you'll get emails with attachments that ask you to do certain things. On the left-hand column, you can see the emails with the attachments. You can tell who they're from. That can sort of help you identify, if this is my superintendent, I may want to read this first. But it gives you things that you would do that demonstrate those same 15 dimensions that we showed earlier. In addition to that, there are actual meetings on your calendar. Now, this is all online. It's all asynchronous. You do it as you wish, but here's a teacher observation. The committee wrote what you should see in this observation. And there's an observation tool that you see in advance. You watch this classroom encounter, and then you write what you think you saw and what you would do next. In addition, there's a meeting with your supervisor where your supervisor gives you feedback and asks you to do something. So it's a practical application of what you do on a daily basis, not as an assessment of your skills, but a way to identify where strengths are and where there are areas for growth and areas where you may want to say, hey, I really need to have this assistant principal focus on this, or I need this school team to help focus on this. So these tools will all be ready within the next, by July, by the time we have our conference. Building Ranks book is in production right now. It should be available late March, early March, April. That's the other A word. And the leadership survey, we're excited because principals are starting it on Monday. Depending on how much tweaking we need to do, are we getting the right information? Are the reports informational to the school leader? And what tweaking we need to do on that will determine how soon, but it'll be no later than the conference in July, as well as the assessment tool. It is a custom tool, so that is all good work that's going on right now. So that's where we are with those products. And I also want to make sure that we do let you know and that we do invite you to the conference that will be in July. We're really excited about it, again, because school leaders designed it. And what's very exciting is our thought leader session, or our keynote speaker on the third day, happens to be 3 practicing published principals. So, and they're talking about unleashing your superheroes. So we keep hearing that you want to hear from each other, and we're trying to make that happen, as well as having multiple opportunities for you to interact with each other and network with each other as part of the programming. So that's where we are with the conference. That's where I am with my presentation today. So if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them now.
Don't see any new questions coming in, but let me just scroll one more time to make sure I haven't missed anything. No, there are no new questions at this point, but remind people, and Joan, thank you for this. I remind people that if you have a question that comes to mind after the webinar is over and you want to reach Joan, you can reach her at octorj@nassp.org. That's direct email to her. Joan, thank you very much for your presentation today. I'm excited seeing where this work has gone since the last time I worked on it with you. And I'm sure that we'll have a lot of people showing up at that conference this summer to get their chance to interact about the materials.
And thanks to each of you who stayed with us through the presentation. If you have any thoughts or ideas, we'd love to hear them, because everything we're building is based on your voice. So thank you very much.
Thank you again. And remember, this will be available on the NASSP website in about 48 hours.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.